We actually write it in English, but with an eye towards Yiddish. And we've worked with Yiddish translators to turn that into Yiddish. Now here's where it gets interesting, because no two Jews can agree on how Yiddish is to be spoken. Generally speaking, people get angry about it, and this is just part of our process of hearing, like, that idiot said this, that's wrong. So we know that once we farm it out to people.
And that guy was talking about his wife.
Yeah.
Who's from the same shtetl, but they don't speak the same.
So in our first season, we actually, all roads point to Jaime.
No, don't throw your father under the bus.
No, I'm putting him on the bus.
Oh, you're putting him on the bus.
To drive it. At first, the very first person we went to was my father. And we also went to a couple other people, so there was a lot of translation by committee. There was one individual who was actually a young ex-Chassid.
Off the derech,
So to speak, in the Mailand area, which is where this all takes place. And so he was a teenager, and he had his own interpretations of how people would speak, based presumably on what he had heard his whole life. And then, we took it to a few other sources and vetted a few things. The other thing that's complicated is in some cases we chose to make up our own words, which we thought was very much in the spirit of the project, and we also think is kind of in the informal spirit of Yiddish. Like, we clearly do a very informal and non-academic form of Yiddish, so we thought it was in the spirit of that. Some people really liked it, some people really didn't like it. But in our second season, we said, well, there's no reason. We want to keep it informal and loose and true to these characters, but there's no reason why it should be ungrammatical for any reason if it's not within the characters. So we want to make sure that the language should be more vetted. So there's one by the name of Rivka Augenfeld, who might have done one of these.
She did do.
Was it with you? Okay. All right, but she's in the vault. Anyways, Rivka, who's also very active with the Jewish Public Library, has been very helpful. She's done the primary translations of everything. And we know when it comes from Rivka, who also in some cases may source here and there, that this is the bona fide version. But it's not over yet. At that point, we say, okay, this is the right version, but it might be a little bit too right. And now we have to casualize it again and throw in our own particular Yiddish comedy shtick into it. And we'll also find, I mean, this is what Seinfeld obsesses over. It's like, it's about the specific word that you use in the joke that makes it funny. So we'll look at the literal translation, but we'll say, is there a quicker way to say this particular line? Is there a way where the beginning rhymes with the end so that there's more of a rhythm to it? And so we'll have a whole process like that. And then in certain cases, like when it's niche material, i.e. More risque material, we might go to a Mr. Portnoy, for example, or somebody along those lines, or Robbie Adler, Pekarari Yiddishkeit, who've helped us a lot with a lot of the translation stuff as well, and say, what are some synonyms for this, or what are some examples on the more slangy side of things, because that's these are streetish characters, so we speak that kind of Yiddish.
And we also try and put in, especially when we're working with Rivka, because it's such a high level of Yiddish, she would propose to us 2, 3, 4, 5 ways of saying something. So sometimes it's the limitations of, well, we really need it as a question because we want to do a question answer, whatever the sort of linguistic needs we have as the writers are at that point. But we also want to throw in, we call them J for J's sometimes, jokes for Jews. So we're going to say something that we know we're not going to translate it exactly what we said. So some people watch the show and they'll say, that's not what he said. We like that. It's like you have to be paying attention. And for that matter, working with Rivka, getting to do even a deeper level of that, which is jokes for Yiddishists, where we can make plays on words in Yiddish. And when it works really well, there's sort of a joke that if you don't speak Yiddish, you get. If you are Jewish, you get a little bit more. And if you speak Yiddish, you even hear that that's not what we said, but it's some sort of play on that, and we like that. But then ultimately we have to perform it in Yiddish, and then what happens on set and the way we perform it, and if there's a little bit of improvisation, which there's not much. I mean, some of the biggest compliments we get are like, were you improvise? Like, no, we were memorizing it and scrutinizing every period, comma, every muttering under our breath is all in the script. But then when we translate it back, for the subtitles, it becomes another process again in terms of the language, because the script did not become the performance exactly, and then you have to sort of bring it back down to something that's readable. I mean, most people don't write scripts that you know as you're writing it are going to be read more than they're going to be listened to and understood. So it's been an interesting process, challenging.
But that's just the writing process. Then there's the production process. There's a whole other thing, including such things as teaching Yiddish to people that only mostly speak Mandarin Chinese. So that's a whole other process. But yeah, it's part of the fun is that it's a big learning process. It's been a total learning curve for us. It's almost like film. Neither of us went to film school, so it's almost like film school with a whole cultural minor. It's like majoring in film studies and minoring in Judaic culture or something like that, because we do learn a lot in the process.